In this interview, I talked to my friend Nick Loper, who is the chief side hustler in Side Hustle Nation. Nick is the host of one of my favorite podcasts, The Side Hustle Show. I've been listening to it for years, and it really helped me get started online with affiliate marketing and just learning about the world that's out there with side hustles. In this interview, Nick tells us about how he got started with his side hustle. In fact, it was a shoe affiliate site, and it grew to the point where he was able to quit his full-time job. And that was a few years ago, even before he even started the Side Hustle brand, Side Hustle Nation, the blog, and so on. It's super interesting to hear about how qualified Nick is as a side hustler and helping others grow and start their businesses. Nick tells us about a few side hustle ideas that he has that he doesn't have time to pursue, and some of those are ideas from guests that he had. So really cool, and these are some ideas that you can start probably this week if you put your mind to it. This interview with Nick is part of a series of side hustlers that I've talked to. I got to hear about how they got started and how they were able to grow their businesses and sometimes make that side hustle their full-time gig. Do let me know in the comments if you want to see more side hustlers, and you could even leave recommendations for people that you would like for me to interview. So without further ado, let's get to the interview with Nick. Welcome. I'm talking with my friend Nick Loper from Side Hustle Nation, the host of Side Hustle Show. Welcome, Nick. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Doug. Thanks for having me.
For the people that don't know you, can you just give us a quick intro on who you are and a little bit about the show, maybe?
Sure. So for the last 5 years, I've hosted a weekly podcast called The Side Hustle Show. It explores part-time business ideas, different ways to make money outside of your day job. And I started it because that was my entrepreneurial background. My original side hustle was a footwear comparison shopping site that earned affiliate commissions from Zappos and Amazon and a bunch of these other online footwear retailers. And that was the vehicle that let me quit my job. So while I was running that as a side hustle, started several different projects, including the very meta Side Hustle Show.
Very cool. And how long after you quit did you start the podcast?
Years, like 5 years, 6 years. I was like, 5 years before I felt like comfortable being like the side hustle guy, I guess, trying to do a little bit of a personal branding project.
Very cool. I had no idea. So that means you started like affiliate marketing and stuff like about 10, 11 years ago, something like that?
Yeah, back in the day, probably 2004, and scaled it to, pretty decent business by 2008, 2009, 2010. And, I sold a lot of shoes, mostly focused in footwear of all things, but have kind of kept the lessons and the learnings from that business to dictate some of the projects today.
Very cool. Yeah, I had no idea you got started that early. So it's actually amazing because like me, I started my niche site project pretty quick after I got started, but you really were in the trenches for a long time. Very interesting. So with that business, I'm just curious, like with that business, did you get a lot of traffic from like SEO, or was it coming from ads or somewhere?
It was primarily driven through AdWords and Bing, which used to be even like Yahoo and Overture like back in the day. And so it was heavily reliant on paid traffic, where probably one of the failure points was that I've failed to reinvest that profit from the pay-per-click stuff into SEO. And so never really got a lot of organic love. And maybe that would have given the business a little more staying power.
How long was it around then?
From 2004 in its very earliest stages to 2014. So when the kind of shut it down and focused on the Side Hustle Nation stuff as the primary focus.
Right on. Very cool. So I guess when you first started, did you have any like specific goals, or did you just get obsessed with like marketing and that sort of thing?
And so I don't even know if this is still a thing, but I started with direct link ads on Google, like text ads for specific models of shoes. Like if you were searching for New Balance model number XYZ, like that was a great long tail search term because it was like super specific, and just linking that with my affiliate link. The problem was it was really tedious to maintain because the shoes would go out of stock or the price would change, and like whoever I was promoting wasn't necessarily the best deal anymore. And so my reasoning, and at that point the goal was to like pay my rent in college, which was less than $400 a month. So it was like, that was a victory. So it was like total like beer money side hustle, right? After graduation and kind of getting my first corporate job, still had this stuff running on the side. And my reasoning was like, okay, this could scale if I could build a website out, and the prices would update automatically, the catalogs would update automatically, and that was the theory, anyways. That's kind of the rudimentary vision that I have for the website. And posted a job on Guru.com and met a developer, and we hashed out this deal, and it was a slow development process and a super ugly website. You can probably go to like Wayback Machine and look it up. It was called shoesrus.net back in its early iterations. And but it was functional, and it got the job done.
Wow. Now, when you were transitioning from like the side hustle to like full time, I guess, how did that go? How did you make that decision?
Well, I made the decision based on a track record of revenue history, which is something I would recommend everybody do instead of, you've probably heard the definition of an entrepreneur is like, somebody who jumps off the cliff and like figures out how to build their parachute on the way down. Absolutely not. Not for me anyways. Much more risk averse. So, I had a track record of earnings history, probably going back. So it was 3 years before I quit my job. So at least for the last 2 years, like there was a pretty solid earnings history. I don't know if it was fully to the point of replacing my day job salary. I was making around 50 grand a year at that time. But what it was doing for sure was, covering my monthly expenses. And I could see with an extra 40, 50 hours a week, like, okay, I can easily get it there and beyond. And so that's kind of what happened after I quit was, having more time to focus on it, to scale it up.
I agree with that approach 100% too. It's very, I don't know, it seems like a sexy idea to like walk in and quit, or walk out of a meeting and quit, and then you're kind of stuck with like who knows what to do with your side hustle. But yeah, I'm thinking a lot of sort of risk averse ideas as well. So I think, yeah, it's just a much better approach to like take your time. There's not a huge rush. So
it's going to be there tomorrow. And that's what I had to tell myself too, because it was like, working at the end there, almost 2 full-time jobs, and just be like, okay, deep breath, like, it's just shoes. It's not going anywhere. It'll be there tomorrow. And it's the same thing with this stuff today. Like you feel pressure to put out a blog post or put out an episode. And, so I stopped sending my newsletter for 2 weeks. And out of like 60,000 people, like 2 people took the time to respond and be like, dude, where are you? Everything okay?
Are you all right?
And so like some people did miss it, but, most people just went about their day.
They should follow you on Instagram, man. Like they'll be able to, make sure you're all right. So you're having a good time. You talk to lots of side hustlers. I think at this point you've talked to, well over 200, close to 300. I know you're coming up on the big 300 episode milestone. So do you have any like side hustles that maybe you've heard of in the last few months that are really interesting to you that people should maybe take a look at?
There have been a handful that are either super creative or super, like, I was just, inspired hearing the story. So a recent one was actually a cleaning business, a residential cleaning business started by this guy who was still in college. And I was like, were you some like, clean freak who always had to be, dusting your apartment and stuff? He's like, no, what I did was just, I saw this opportunity in the Yelp reviews for these cleaning businesses that had been around for decades in some cases, where they were technically very proficient at the act of cleaning, but they sucked at the business stuff. They didn't answer their phones. They were unresponsive, like all that stuff. So he reasoned, look, I can find people to clean. Like that's not rocket science. And I'm just going to do the business side really well. He explained he got his first customers through a platform called Thumbtack. And his other advantage was in running it as a side hustle. He's like, I got all the business between 5 p.m. when those other businesses closed and weren't responding or via text or email or message or, phone. I got all the business between 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. just because, I was a scrappy young hustler who was, out there being responsive. And so I thought that was a really cool one. Never cleaned an apartment, never cleaned a house himself. He was doing, I think, 60 grand a month when we talked and running the whole thing remotely. He was like, so the cleaning business is in Washington, D.C. He was off in London when we called. He's spending time in Japan. Like he's all over the place. I thought that one was really cool. One that was also inspiring was this dude who wanted to get into real estate investing, but didn't have, the capital necessary. So he was at his kid's friend's birthday party, and they had this like inflatable bounce house thing there. And he's like, that's like rental real estate in a way. Somebody is renting this bounce house right now. So he goes home, finds one of these things used on Craigslist for $800 and starts renting it for 130, 140 bucks a day. He's like, that pencils out a lot better math wise than like the 1% rule for traditional rental real estate. So I like that one. Another one on the bounce house front was actually a guy drop shipping these giant commercial bounce houses, like several $1,000s, holding no inventory, having his suppliers ship the stuff out on his behalf, and sold 300 grand worth of them in the first year, driving traffic with Google ads and then reinvesting that into SEO. It was just, holy crap, put up a Shopify store and develop some supplier relationships and kind of off to the races. So those were the kind of three recent ones. I mean, there's hundreds that we can talk about, but I love them.
Yeah, I listened to the one with the cleaning business, and if I remember right, the guy was in college when he was launching it, right? He was like studying for finals, like as the business was getting going, right?
Yeah, so this thing went, from zero, side hustle college student to 60 grand a month over the course of 2 years. And he said, like, while he was, in that final semester, he's like trying to respond to stuff in class and like answering call, like he's having to step out. His professors are like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm trying to run a business here, man. Yeah. This is the best entrepreneurial education.
That's amazing. Yeah. Cause I mean, the point being, he wasn't like, an MBA or anything like that. He was just like a guy going to class and whatnot. So interesting.
Yeah, definitely a smart dude and a go-getter for sure. And I mean, all these people are.
So let's rewind a little bit. What was your like corporate job back in the day?
So I was a sales rep for Ford on their service and parts side of their business. So I'd interface with their dealers and try and get them to sell more Ford parts.
Simple. And a little known fact, I don't know if you remember this, Nick, but you worked like in Atlanta back in the day, right? In the Dunwoody area.
Mm-hmm.
So like I used to live like right in that sort of pocket, that neighborhood in the perimeter. So
yeah, I feel like I know I like Google Earthed it and be like, oh crap, you were like a mile away.
Really close. Yeah. So maybe we ate at the same restaurant at the same time, but didn't know it. We both had like much more hair back then, I bet.
Yeah, I was going to say, we look different now.
So as you were growing the business, even now, like how do you deal with like motivation? And I know as I was getting started and when I talk to other people, like there's always points where things get hard. It takes longer than you thought. Things didn't come through when you thought they would. So how do you deal with motivation?
Man, first of all, it's fun. So that's kind of inherently motivating. Like if you find the work interesting and challenging, that's, I think, always going to be a factor. For me, there are a few other factors, like, getting feedback from listeners and readers is huge. Like, hey, this helped me do X, Y, and Z. Hey, I read your thing on getting traffic from Pinterest and I tripled my website. Like stuff like that is really powerful, at least for me. Other stuff is like getting to the money milestones fast. If it's like, just getting a freelance client or, something where it's like very low overhead, very quick to make a pitch and make a deal, like versus, as like building a niche site and building links and building content, like it could be months before you ever start to see any rankings. And like, it can be tough to keep it going. So in cases like those, trying to set kind of like micro milestones to check off the list, that you can continue to chip away at every day and make it feel like, okay, I'm doing the right things, I'm moving forward, I'm making progress, even if I'm not seeing any direct results per se.
Gotcha. And I take it that sort of shapes your productivity as well. So you'll have like mini milestones along the way so you can sort of track your longer term goals. Is that accurate?
I am really bad at long-term goals. I haven't maybe set any for a long time, but you kind of step into this stuff and think, at least in terms of the podcast, starting with the hook or the story or the broad idea first, and then trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be the best person to illustrate that, to tell that story. And even when you get pitches coming in, you're like, okay, you're an awesome entrepreneur, but like maybe you're too far along for my audience, or maybe like it's not super applicable. Like I talked to a woman the other day, had a cool business, was selling digital products and her own kind of invention, her own course on Amazon. But she dumped $100 grand into, the initial production of that course. I was like, oh, I was like, It was my bad. Like I hadn't done the homework in advance. And I was like, oh, what gave you the confidence to do that? Where'd that money come from? Like, was that a bootstrap thing? So trying to put the audience first, I guess, like make sure that, and if she had been like, well, I followed this specific formula on Kickstarter and it went viral, like that's one thing, but it's like, hey, I just had $100,000 sitting around, like whatever.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to like relate that to people who are trying to do a side hustle. So yeah. Interesting. All right. I'm a productivity geek. So I sort of get into it, try like several things, and I'm always testing something. Like, how do you manage your productivity, say on a weekly basis, just day to day?
Let's do it. I mean, I'm probably ask you some questions on the productivity front.
All right.
The biggest shift for me in the last couple of years has been theme days, which is something I picked up from Mike Vardy at productivityist.com. And inside of those theme days, so Monday is kind of like a content creation day, Tuesday is meeting day, Wednesday is, working on other side hustle stuff and some admin, and then Thursday is theoretically blocked off for like side hustle growth projects. For a while that was like an email list migration, that was a website redesign. Maybe it takes the form of like a course or something like that, and then Fridays are off because get to spend the time with my son. Inside those theme days, the biggest shift was stacking all the meetings up on Tuesdays, just because I would have previously I'd have some project I was working on, and then I'd have a 15-minute call in half an hour, or and then 15 minutes after that have another to a deep work rhythm. Whereas now it's just like, okay, Tuesdays are a wash. Usually 9 to 5 is stacked up pretty deep with recordings and other meetings. So it's like that's probably been the biggest shift and opened up the biggest time blocks on other days to get some meaningful stuff done.
Very cool. So I've done a similar thing as well, Nick. So I don't do it every single week, but most of the time I try and like do as much of one thing on one day as I can. Kind of like you said, especially for like content creation, like it may take me 45 minutes to get in the mood to write, which is kind of a long time. But if I could write for 3 hours after that, that's pretty solid. I can get a few thousand words, edit on some other day, and hopefully, I don't have any meetings to interrupt that or a live stream or anything like that. Now, on those days, this is a Tuesday. Does your voice hold up pretty good? I mean, I guess over the years, you've been able to manage your voice, but talking all day, it's a little rough, right?
I can definitely feel it at the end of the day. More like that's the beauty of hosting an interview show mostly. So if I'm behind the mic, asking the questions, let somebody else do the talking most of the time. So that helps. So it's definitely a mix of the two.
Cool. Got it. So I'm asking a lot of the folks in this side hustle series about like side hustle ideas that you have thought of yourself, not necessarily from guests in your case, but maybe it's something that scratches your own itch. You're busy, you have too many things to do, and you can't pursue it. So do you have any ideas like that?
Oh my gosh, so like the donate a business idea segment. Gosh, I used to keep a file of these. I should pull that up. The one that I've actually been kind of curious to test is the loan signing system. So apparently for people closing on mortgages in almost every state, some states require an attorney, but most states don't. They have a notary come and walk you through like the signing paperwork, and they tell you what you're signing your life away to, and all the stuff to close on the mortgage. For those appointments, like those signing agents are earning $75 to $150, or sometimes even more, depending on how long it takes, how big the stack of papers is. And all you need to get started is a notary license. So I had the guy on the show a year and a half ago now, who taught an online course about how to become a loan signing agent. And the whole episode was about like, how we scaled this course with no audience to start with. And at the end of the episode, all the feedback was like, okay, that was great, but like we want to learn more about like this loan signing thing. So I had him back on this year with one of his students who was making, I can't remember what he was like. I think he was between $1,500 and $2,000 a month on the side from his day job, like when we recorded. And then the following month, it was like at $3,500. And I was like, holy crap. Like, and he's like, just for watching people sign papers. And it was just like, so that's one. I almost want to like mystery shop the guy's course and like go test this out on my own, because that seems super, I don't want to say easy, but like not hard.
It
not
seems
difficult.
pretty flexible. Like you could kind of just, if you want to do 10 of them a week or whatever, or 10 a month.
And that's what he said. Like you get the notifications on text message. Hey, are you available at 6:30 tonight? And he can reply yes or no. And it's just, okay.
Man, that's pretty cool. Any others?
So there was that one. I've been kind of wanting to do like an email marketing. Well, actually two sides. Like for a long time, I've been wanting to build like the email marketing, authority site, that compares all the different service providers and like, here's the pros and cons of ConvertKit. Here's the pros and cons of ActiveCampaign. Here's why the different features and stuff. Never have carved out the time to build that. But the other thing I've been, wanting to do on the email front is to build an email-based business that's just like a daily newsletter, curated topics on here are the best articles on photography, on, the best food blog, whatever it is. Because like the one that I really like is Rockstar Finance, like the best personal finance articles of the day. They send just one email a day. I think they have ads or they have sponsors. Like it's just a super low overhead business. You think about like The Hustle is another one that I get where, it's just good writing and good email. Like they tell a story and then there's some spots that they sell on that. And they could say, hey, look, we got 100,000 people. We got a 50% open rate. Here's our rates. I think that one would be a cool little side hustle to play around with.
Very good. If I may point out, like your idea about the email service provider list, like you've done a similar thing with credit cards, right? Here pretty recently.
Yeah, a little bit. I guess had a different vision for it, but like the credit card thing
Sure.
was just, we got back from a month-long trip because daycare let us take the month off. It was essentially free. We spent $1,200 on flights, but didn't pay for a single hotel, didn't pay for Airbnb. We had some Airbnb credit. We stayed with some friends and family for part of that, but used some miles, used some hotel points. And people were asking like, wait a minute, you seem to go on these pretty decent trips and you're not slumming it while you're there. So put together a free guide on like, okay, how it really works is, we take advantage of these different credit card sign up bonuses and, try and be smart with our spending. Cause like the default is like, 1% cash back, 2% cash back, which is okay. It's better than nothing. Like I'll take it. But, through strategically signing up for new cards, if you have the spending to justify it or to reach that, minimum spend required for the bonus, and you're going to be a responsible borrower, you're going to pay it off and all that jazz, you can actually do significantly better than 1% to 2%. I mean, you could do 30, 40, 50%, like on certain cards for mileage rewards and stuff like that. So that's at freecreditcardcourse.com. You can find it on YouTube as well. But just a kind of a fun little walkthrough guide. Here's what we've been able to do with, I don't even want to say like travel hacking or anything like that, but it's just like, spending smarter. It's like free money. So it's like, why not take it?
Rip. And I recently took a trip and basically no one asked me about what my travel was like, but we basically paid all with points as well. So stayed in a really nice hotel. We were able to bring our dog in. It was one of those boutique hotels that allows dogs, and they have like organic dog treats and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like we had a VRBO on the beach and it was awesome. And yeah, not hotel points, but all like reward points in some fashion. And some of them, like in my case, I think I had I don't want to say the specific one, but I had one, it's a business card. And if you like spend enough in 6 months, then you get like 80,000 points, which is a lot. And I knew I was going to spend that much on tools or whatever I needed. So it's a no-brainer sometimes if you just plan like a little bit ahead.
Yeah, it's just prepaying for software, prepaying for conferences, for whatever expenses you have in your business, like paying contractors in certain cases, although I usually tack on a little bit in those cases. Like I don't want to make them pay the fee. So it's like, I'll add a little bit to it.
Right. So let's get into like some of your team. Maybe I don't know if you have like a big team or anything, but I imagine, you're a busy guy. You've been doing the podcast for a while. Like, do you have any outsourced freelancers out there?
Yeah, kind of a convoluted system of specialists right now. And maybe the team will grow in the next few months, like to kind of have a project manager or kind of like a more executive assistant role. But how the stack looks like today on the podcast side, there's a podcast editing service. I use podcastfasttrack.com. They kind of take they run through the raw audio. I can mark up the transcription and be like, cut this. They just make it sound good. There is a freelance writer in the UK who's actually been with me for years now. He summarizes the show, so he kind of creates the episode-specific lead magnets that you see for a lot of the episodes. He writes the show notes, and he does some content writing for another one of my sites as well. I have a dedicated Pinterest manager who actually just she was just in the States. Like, she's from India, and she sends me this email like, I'm in the States. Where do you live? And I'm like, it's a big country, I live in Livermore. You never heard of it? And she was like, holy crap, that's only 40 miles from me, So we got to hang out and have lunch with her and her husband. That was super cool.
Wow.
First time I met like one of my virtual team members in 13, from the very first guy on guru.com. I think that was the last one that I met. So she does the Pinterest stuff. I have a service called OK Relax, which is the closest thing to like a dedicated general VA. She does, article research. She does some, lead magnet installations. She does some blog post formatting, just kind of general admin stuff, and then some longer term, I don't know, just like if you have some tedious data entry thing, like she might have a post on like the best Udemy courses. And so she took a lot of the screenshots and stuff for that too and did some formatting there. What else? I have Fancy Hands. This is like a New York-based non-dedicated virtual assistant service where you could send over. They do stuff like they respond to certain emails on my behalf, like, hey, follow this template based on the responses. They do some proofreading. Like I just had them proofread a couple of blog posts. It's always good to have a second set of eyes on that stuff. They, check in for flights. They do some research too. But, I earn a lot of referral credits for them, and they don't pay me in cash. So I just burn them through using the service. And then I got somebody else that runs the Amazon ads, like AMS ads for books. That might be it. Right now.
Cool. So sounds pretty lean. It sounds like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 are pretty critical, and then everyone else, like, it's sort of as needed.
Yeah, the overhead has crept up a little bit over the years, but it's it's justified as the business has grown, and that's where it's like, okay, it's probably just about to the point of looking for that executive assistant, project manager role, email triage. I don't know, just like a higher level. Higher. I don't know. What's your team look like? I'm curious to hear where you're at.
Yeah, it's very lean also. So I have an assistant that helps with like email support for like my niche site course. And then I have another assistant that helps a lot on the YouTube side. So she was a YouTuber. We just happened to have like a couple common friends, and she needed like some more contract work basically. And yeah, so she helps me a lot on the YouTube side, and she has more of an eye for you. She was a vlogger, so she has more like pure skills in that area, where I was just doing like talking heads kind of videos, tutorials. So I have that, and then I usually just spawn up teams for whatever I need. So if I have a bunch of content that needs to be written, I'll spend a week and hire 3 or 4 writers, maybe get a content manager, have them train them a bit, have them run through the project in 4 to 6 weeks, and then move on to the next thing. That way I can grow the team really fast and get rid of them. The scary thing for me to bring someone on a more regular basis is I would have to make sure that they had enough work to do so that they wouldn't start looking for other work, which I guess that's where the companies that have like an as needed, or whenever you put something in the queue, like someone does it. Sounds like Fancy Hands is maybe kind of like that, right?
Yeah, how it works is, they have a distributed team kind of behind the scenes that's tackling these tasks. And so, your request goes into a queue with all their other customers, and then, people can pick them off based on, whether it's something they can do or they want to do, like, sit on the phone with Comcast, or call my insurance company, whatever it is.
Nice. And I guess the rates vary depending on the skill that you need them to have for Fancy Hands.
For their service, it's like a flat monthly fee. I think for 15 requests a month, it's $50. And then OK Relax is an overseas service, but dedicated. I think it's 25 requests up to half an hour for $100 a month.
Oh, that's pretty good. I may have to look into that. I didn't know that one existed. Cool.
Yeah, they've been pretty cool. Although I think my assistant is pregnant, like about to give birth, and so like, oh shoot, we're going to be on maternity leave for a minute here.
Right, man. So yeah, that's kind of my team. I usually keep it pretty lean, and then I like to just work on a project and like end it, dismantle the team. Everybody knows that that's how it's going to work, so it works well. A lot of flexibility that way, and I could change my mind, like often once I finish the project. So,
yeah.
All right. As you were getting started, or even now, were you part of mastermind groups?
I was kind of a latecomer to mastermind groups, so I didn't have a mastermind until 2014, and I remember like my friend was like, you gotta have a mastermind group. And so I'm like literally Googling, like, what is this? I think it's like a name brand thing. She's like, come on, Think and Grow Rich, mastermind groups. I was like, I got nothing here. Since then, super, super helpful. Like I was a lone wolf, like heads down, working on my thing. And it was lonely, but I didn't know any other way. And so, having some accountability, having people to bounce ideas off of, get feedback. What do you think of this landing page? What do you think of this project? If this was your business, how would you grow it? How would you drive more traffic? What really should I be focusing on? How often should I send emails? Like, a million and one questions. And it's been really, really helpful to have that kind of feedback group, accountability group, for the past several years.
Cool. And it sounds like you're describing a group like the ones I've been a part of, where it's mostly, peer based, although everyone has their own specialized skills and stuff. This is not like a paid mastermind, right?
Yeah, I haven't been a part of a paid mastermind. Actually have hosted some on Side Hustle Nation. That was like the first like monetization for the site. So like the light bulb goes off. I see like the amazing power of masterminds, and a friend was like, dude, you got an audience, you should host a mastermind. I was like, all right, let's try it out. And then ran that for a couple of years. It was actually really cool. And when you have a group that's like really firing and motivated, it was one of the coolest things to see the progress every week. And then when you have like attendance issues and people aren't doing what they say they're going to do, it was like a drag. So it's been on hiatus since my first son was born, and he's like 2.5. So trying to figure out how to retool it, rethink it in a way that makes it more impactful and more worthwhile.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I'm a big believer in mastermind groups. Just like you said, I mean, if you're just at the laptop by yourself and you hit a roadblock, it's tough to like get out of the tailspin if you don't have some people to just chat with. And sometimes it's just, a therapy session to, get some stuff off your chest that you're dealing with in the business, where people can understand what you're talking about, have the same vocabulary, for example.
Yeah. I mean, the podcast has been huge for network building, but also just, a bunch of free Facebook groups. Like there's some cool communities of entrepreneurs out there, and there's probably a specialty group for whatever type of business you're trying to build. And so people will ask me questions about, some nuance of, like an Amazon FBA program. I'm like, I don't know, find ask the Facebook group, there's somebody, there's a Side Hustle Nation Facebook group. There's, I'm sure, a million dedicated specifically to FBA. So, go find somebody there. I know there's going to be somebody willing to help.
So one other thing I want to point out with Nick here is you're not just a mouthpiece talking about this stuff. You also have like side hustles. You're testing stuff all the time. Can you tell us some of the streams of income you have out there?
Well, there's the self-publishing stuff. There was the Amazon FBA stuff, kind of like the eBay, Amazon arbitrage stuff. Like I haven't been doing that a ton recently, but just to kind of, because I was skeptical about it. I heard about it on a podcast. Like you can walk into Walmart and scan clearance items and sell them for a profit on Amazon. Like, how come no one told the Walmart employees about that? Like it just didn't register. It didn't make sense. Like and then I did it and proved it. And I was like, well, what do you know? Holy crap, there's opportunity everywhere. Some freelancing stuff. Also, so I've done freelance book editing, a little bit of freelance writing. We've done some like website audits and stuff like that for people. Even did some freelance like virtual assistant recruiting back in the day. All of those kind of helped give me the confidence to like put myself out there and say, okay, you're worth charging money for whatever skill you have. And those were just pretty fun projects too. So I have an online course on self-publishing, starting to get a little bit dated now since I was from late 2014. Actually, in response to a guest post that I wrote, people were like, holy crap, this should be a book on itself. And, people wanted more. So like, okay, I'll turn that into a course. I'm trying to think of other income streams. I've been playing around with some alternative investments, Fundrise and Peer Street specifically. I was a Prosper investor or peer-to-peer lender investor for a long time, kind of transitioning out of Prosper right now and into some of these more real estate backed investments, and then playing around with like dividend stocks and stuff too. It was Ace Chapman, who I know he was on the podcast, and he said, when I need money, I go buy it. And it took a while for that to like click, but it was a kind of a cool way to think about like buying cash flow. That's improved my mindset about buying even just stocks and stuff, because it's like I'm the person who always thinks it's about to crash, the market is about to tank. Like I'm not putting any money in, but like by positioning it, it's like I don't care if it tanks. Like I'm buying for the dividend, I'm buying for the cash flow, and that's been helpful for me. So I still have some affiliate sites. Most of them don't do much, but a couple, actually one does pretty well. And then it's like the side hustle stuff. Clarity.f. Have you ever taken any calls on Clarity?
No, I remember when it was like popular and I heard about it quite a bit, but is that working out well for you? Or?
I don't get a ton of call requests, but it's kind of a fun platform. Actually, one of my repeat customers like doesn't want to talk about side hustles. They don't want to talk about outsourcing. They just want like website feedback. And so it's, sure, I'll give you feedback on your landing page. Like it's pretty cool.
Interesting. And I think the rates are published on there. So can you tell us what you make for say a half-hour call?
I think it's set to like $250 an hour or something right now.
Okay. So it's enough for you to go look at somebody's website and
$4.17 a minute. So they price it by minute. So I don't know what that averages out to.
Times 3, 120. Is that right?
Yeah, there we go. 250. Cool.
250. My math is terrible. Sorry.
No, I think, and that's a cool one. It's tech focused, it's marketing focused, but like it's an easy place to put up your profile and say, hey, I'm going to take calls. And the what's cool about it is like the price ceiling. So you can set calls for free, but if you're going to charge, I think the minimum is $60 an hour.
Oh, that's nice. It's kind of like the opposite of like Udemy, where I think it was like a race to the bottom for like any course, like you could basically get for $10. I remember back in the day.
Yeah, they still are pretty aggressive with those price promotions.
Interesting. Well, thanks, Nick. Is there any, I guess, last tips that you would give someone who's maybe they don't have a side hustle yet and they're thinking of like pulling the trigger and trying something? Like, what can you tell them?
So start small and think of it in terms of trades. So I just talked to the flea market flipper for a Where Are They Now episode with him. It's basically, how can I multiply money fast? And in his case, it's like finding something that somebody else doesn't want, thinks is worthless, doesn't want to be bothered with fixing or cleaning or whatever, acquiring it cheap and reselling it, right? And then parlaying that into the next thing. And even if it's not physical products, maybe it's that website, it's that first article, it's learning WordPress, right? Like these are all skills that you can, parlay and trade up into the next thing. So that's kind of my advice for today is, start small and think about, you don't have to know, the next 13, 14 trades, but you can kind of imagine what the first couple might look like.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Nick. So everybody definitely check out the Side Hustle Show, and I'll put links to all of Nick's stuff. Is there anywhere specific that you want people to go? Like, is your number one choice?
If you hit sidehustlenation.com/ideas, you'll have a constantly updated laundry list of part-time business ideas. So if you're looking to get started, that's a great place to get the creative juices flowing.
Very good. Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
You bet.
Thanks a lot for your time, Nick. I know everyone here at Niche Site Project got a lot out of your conversation and wisdom from years of side hustling. So everyone, please do check out, Nick's podcast, of course, his blog, and he has a YouTube channel where there's a lot of cool information too. So be sure to check out the links. If you don't know me, I'm Doug Cunnington, founder of Niche Site Project, and I talk a lot about Amazon affiliate marketing, productivity, and project management as well. So if you're new to the channel, do have a look around. If you like what you see, please subscribe.